Okay, we are back. It is 12:54, and we are passing it back to Nicole.
Thank you. We're going to jump right back into the agenda. The next item is final budget decisions. Final budget decisions. This topic is to discuss anything that may have come up during public hearings or any other additions or changes to the budget that we have not talked about on the errata list or something else that might have come up. I believe we got 2 written public comments. And so it's more or less to give the floor to see if there's something that we should address in the final budget.
Can I bring up one item, please? This may not be something we need to address today, but I want to preview it because I think we are likely to need to address it. Maybe in the First Amendment or something, we'll see. But just to lay this out, the CPED professional services budget is like $50,000. And then they came and said, we need 75,000 more, I believe. And we said, no, we don't have money for an extra. But we all understood that there was a budget amount that we had given previously, because a few years ago, they had nothing for that. We added 50, they said the need. So when I don't know what my seatmates heard or thought, but I thought when they were asking for that extra amount, you know, we've got a long docket and a lot of those items need those protective services. So I was thinking, okay, well, only the first few things maybe you get funded and then some of the like lower priority items of the board get delayed because they don't have the budget for the professional services. So that's why I made the decision to not fund that, because we don't have the money. In speaking with Josh and CPED director, you know, he's saying that even the top items, like even the first item on the list, which is some of the Grand Mound external projects that we had to delay for a year, even those would potentially, we don't know for sure, but potentially eat up more than the $50,000 budget that's there. So the decision that we made potentially might not allow any docket item that needed that kind of service to go forward. I did not understand that when the budget item was presented. I thought the maintenance level amount would at least get us a few items down the list. So, you know, I'm advocating to Josh to just move forward with, you know, there's at least a couple of items that we've already approved from the Grand Mound to move forward with the review that's needed for the board to make a decision. And I've asked Josh to just move forward with those and let's see what the let's see what the RFP comes back. But he was predicting that it might come back, you know, more than 50,000, and even to get that first item out of the gate will require the county to potentially allocate more money. So I don't know that we need to do that today. We don't have that money today, but I just wanted to let that know because I was a little upset about the disconnect that I felt about not understanding that when they were coming and saying we want 75,000 more, that was to even do anything. I thought that was maybe like how much they would need to do everything. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that's what they were asking, that they would need to do anything. So I didn't understand that. I don't know if my seatmates understood that, but I know we all, I mean, I know from the conversations we've had, we all care about moving those docket items forward and not letting the docket get bottlenecked. And there's the whole issue about, you know, whether the applicant could pay for the services and all of that. That may be the conversation that we have. If we get an RFP back and it's going to cost $75,000 to do the first item, it may be that we have that discussion about asking the applicant to contribute. I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page because I had my eyes opened a little bit by that discussion with Josh. Okay.
Yeah, no, I was also under the same impression as you, so
I don't think we can be in a position as a board where no docket item can go forward or with.
I agree with that. Nicole or Jennifer, what is the budget for Department 36?
Total budget or just for docket
Total
items?
budget.
Well. Are you there first?
We'll see. I was looking up the actual change request.
Okay. Okay, so the total, come on,
3.4, 3.5 million? Is that only general fund?
3.5 million in the general fund,
they,
The general fund is 2.6,
2.6 million general fund in
Department 36
Department 36 in 2024.
in 2024.
And do they have any vacancies?
That's a,
then I'll have to
Another
pay summer on
question.
that one.
yeah.
There are other ways to address this than just strictly what's on the professional services line item. Budget at the bottom line,
Not at this time. No vacancies at this
no
time.
vacancies at this time.
They're in the process of filling them. So there's vacant.
So there are vacancies at this time.
Where are you in the process?
There are vacancies. And the,
So there may be funding
there
that's
might
not,
be funding that's, you know, it might not be on that line, but there may be capacity
Okay,
in their
so
budget.
if
This
that,
is what we say to any officer department.
and if that flexibility is there,
Yes,
as you describe, then I do not want to see staff emails going to applicants telling them the board didn't fund your thing and your project that you've been promised all year
It
is gonna
is
move forward, might be
inappropriate.
put into limbo and because that just created completely, and from my perspective, unnecessary consternation from the public.
I agree, and I would also add that it was completely inappropriate if anyone were to have sent out an email like that. That due to the board's budget, we can't do your thing now. That should not be coming out from any
Wait,
department.
are you saying that happened?
It
I believe it did,
appears
yes.
to have happened. But, well, that's a personnel issue on a different track. Yes, there is absolutely that flexibility.
Okay, good. That was the only one that I was sort of concerned about.
So do we wanna kind of give a nod about exploring that possibility as an option? Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Well, yeah, I mean, we could do it, you know, I think, and I don't know if Josh needs direction formally from the board, because in my opinion, we already approved the docket items to be moved forward, top priority, and so I think he told me that he felt that, you know, if he could go out to an RFP for the thing, if it's just that if it came back, if the first project came back and it needed more than 50,000, then he would be in a position of not having the funding to go forward and he'd have to come back to us. And I said, well, then do that and we'll take that up when we see. Maybe it'll come in at 30,000 and
I guess I wanna hear what Jennifer's response back is. So what was the UKU in what process are you or?
Oh, they've done interviews right now and they're expecting to have them filled by the end of the month or the beginning of the year.
Or the beginning of the year?
Yeah. All
All the positions?
Yes.
Then we don't have that flexibility. Is that what I'm hearing, Robin, if that's the case?
I would suggest to you that budget is a point in time estimate and there may be other things that come along that
I mean, they
create
could have-
flexibility. We budget at the bottom line.
You budget at the bottom line and you assume all your positions will get filled, and as soon as you fill them all, somebody quits. That's what happens.
It is what happens. And other things come and other things go. And what the law says is the board approves the budget and the official must manage.
yeah, I mean, I'm sitting at this point in time, I don't know that there's an issue because there's a budget for professional services and there's projects that need professional services. And until we see an RFP come back that says, you know, we need double the amount that you've got budgeted, then we can have that conversation, whether it's they have other opportunities or we have to budget more money, you know, but I'm
Right.
just hoping that that moves forward, you know, and it sounds like there's no talking to Josh, that sounds fine. But then there's a disconnect between communications that went out.
I agree.
So I wanted to make sure that we're not like that CPED didn't feel like they had to stop everything because we didn't approve that additional 75,000, because I guarantee you the board did not understand that that would have been the result of that decision.
No, the way that package came in, that appeared to be additional work with the new work related to the comp plan?
I mean, I think it was just not clear. I mean, I don't think anything was misrepresented, so to speak. I just think that those dots were not connected for the board.
I agree.
So that's why I'm trying to just,
So are you making a recommendation, sir?
you know, maybe we can hear back from Josh at another point. If he needs direction to go forward with those projects and then come back, you know, then we can give him that direction. He may not need that, but I guess I'm letting the
We'll
county
be
manager
bringing
know.
the docket to you. That'll be one of the first things that you need to start to grapple with in January.
But it's, you know, it's one of those things where in the Grand Mound stuff, there's 3 projects, I think, that are in the same boat. And they were told in August and September, they were basically said, yeah, we're lining up the consultant RFP and everything. And like, I mean, it shouldn't just have to wait for the next cycle. I mean, to me, this is 2023 work that should just be ongoing.
Right.
It was our highest priority in from the board in 2023. That should just be moving forward, like straightforward. If CPED hits a budget wall of some kind, they come back to us, but
Like any other,
but that hasn't been communicated to us, so I fully expect that work's moving forward. We were very clear about that, if you remember, in the spring when we hit, I mean, if you sense any frustration on my part, it's because we hit this back last spring where the staff said, well, or planning commission said, don't do any of the work on these because don't do the SEPA because we don't recommend they go forward. And the board had to step in and go, that's not for the planning commission to say. They make recommendations. They shouldn't be a gatekeeper to be able to stop the work going forward that the board would need to decide whether to do something or not do it. And we had to step in and basically get it going again. And then here we are just a few months later and an applicant's being told, well, the board said no to press service, so your thing may not even be able to go till 2025. Whoa, stop the presses. We never brought that decision and told that if we didn't fund 75,000 professional services additional, our top docket item priorities from 2023 that we'd already had to intervene on behalf of once in the spring, we're gonna get stopped again at staff level. So that's where we hear from the applicants why things take, you know, we as commissioners are left explaining why things take 4 years, 5 years. And then you see things like this where this is how it happens. I mean, we've lost a year, almost. And if that's what the board wanted, sure, but it's like directly contrary to what the board wanted to see happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right. So that'll be something we take up next year if we discover a shortfall.
I
Other
have a
items?
couple of items. First one, I just want to do some clarification on the HR positions. And the intention of the board, I guess, but, which was for the positions to be in HR under Maria, and then that the funding would just help basically it was just the funding would help support those positions. So, because we approved several positions in both Public Works and Public Health, and HR doesn't, you know, they're still receiving that impact with the increase in staff, and their staff is not going up either, and just to allocate those resources. So, because they're bigger departments, they take more of HR's time, it's just how it goes. But for it to be just kind of like a funding thing, but those positions would still be under
Maria.
Maria.
And that's how they were set up, so we did a direct appropriation with them instead of an operating transfer. And so we set them in HR, so she had the one position that you approved, and then part of her reduction package was shifting an FTE from general fund over to the funds. And so we are appropriating them with those funding sources within HR, and they will report it to Maria, so that's how they're set up in the budget.
Okay. Thank you. Next, I want to talk about something that David brought up yesterday. I was actually going to be asking more about the HR position and kind of the plan if those positions didn't get filled, but he brought up a point about TSD, the NFP positions, they were going to be starting in a delayed. And so I just kind of want to know which positions are going to be, because, and from what Nicole said, you said it would be on, it was from the advisory committee, but I thought, the board went through and kind of redid that whole thing, and we were just like, these are the positions that we want to fund, and so why are they not able to start right away? So, I mean, the backlog is there and it's pressing, and
So if that's the direction the board wants to go, they can start in the beginning of the year. The way that we are reconciling the budget is against the recommendations from TST. When we put together the financial plan, we did put them in as full-time starting in 2024, but we were anticipating that there would be some savings because some positions wouldn't start at the beginning of the year. The list that I have here for NFP, there are, the nurse family partnership manager is supposed to start halfway through 2024. The medical social worker is supposed to start halfway through 2024. The community health worker as well, halfway through 2024. This is based off of TST's recommendations.
TST Advisory Committee.
Yes, the advisory committee. And I think there is one that's supposed to start in 2025.
This was how, like,
That's it.
if I remember right, this was how they made all the dollars fit, is basically saying, well, it's probably gonna take 6 months to get it filled and up to
Right.
speed, so they only funded it starting mid-2024.
That's
Is
correct.
that right? And then Commissioner Mejia, are you taking issue or wanting to change that, or?
well, yeah, I kind of want to have that discussion, but then there was also a Medicaid, the one where we switched it to Medicaid, and he also said that one was starting later. And so why is that one starting later?
The one we switched to Medicaid.
Hold on a second.
Medicaid reimbursement.
Do you remember that conversation?
I have to look it up and I can tell you.
So I'm not 100% sure. If that's not the ones that I listed, I'm not sure why he
I
said
don't-
that.
I don't know which one, yeah,
Yeah.
that was what he said there, he was like, there are some positions through NFP that are gonna be phased in June, and then there, also the one for the Medicaid reimbursement is going to be starting later, so.
Do you remember which one was the Medicaid reimbursement?
Okay, so it's that, David is saying it's the admin assistant. And the admin assistant is in the system as starting in January of 2025. And
Is that one of their errors?
that one might be that that's how they put it in and they never indicated that it needed to be at a different time.
Because that's not on the recommendation from the committee.
So the admin assistant was submitted with the date of 2025. I was told last night that it should be a date of 2024, and that's how they intended to submit it, but it was not submitted that way.
Okay, so then, will that one be corrected?
If you choose to correct it, or if that's what you guys want to do, then
Is the board okay with that position starting in 2024?
What position are we talking about?
It's the administrative assistant for NFP, and that's through Medicaid reimbursement.
This is the one that they entered wrong in July, and they knew they entered it wrong, but they didn't contact us until yesterday.
correct.
Is Medicaid reimbursement means what they're working on or how it's funded?
That's how it's funded.
So it's not gonna take up TST budget?
No, that's federal funding.
Yeah, it
So is there
sounds
any
like it's
reason not to
proposed
do
from
this then?
federal.
It's,
It
I think we
sounds
Why
like
did
are they
it.
doing the match?
Like, send the money back or
I don't know how they're doing the
utilize
match,
it.
but this is money from healthcare
To me,
authority.
that's what it sounds like.
there's no good reason not to, then I'm for it. I mean,
Thumbs up for me.
So three.
that's what David was talking about.
Yeah. Okay, and
So
then,
I would just add, though, that if departments know that they've made an error, they really need to bring it in before you're in final deliberation.
no, and I understand, and I didn't, it wasn't until he mentioned something as in the public hearing that I was just like, oh, wait, like, which positions are starting later and phased in? Like, I thought all of these positions were starting in January, and so that's why I was surprised. Because I thought honestly that was my idea through this was that this was the intention of the board, but I think we just gave thumbs up, and so you were like, okay, kind of like what, take it as it is and not any
Yeah.
different. So the positions starting in June, those were kind of to mitigate the effect of the spending in TST. Okay,
They could fund a few more things.
Right.
They
That
took
was-
that approach on a few, not only nurse family, but
They
a
did
few
it,
other things where
they did, yeah.
that approach.
They took that, the committee took that approach when they were going through things, and it made sense.
So what about this community health nurse supervisor starting in 2025? Is that correct?
So that might be the other one that Commissioner Mejia was referencing, and I need to look that up really quick too. I think that's the same situation.
This is not a decision of the board. This is an error of the department, is my understanding, and they've had this budget. They entered it themselves, and they've had this budget since they entered it in July. That they're bringing this to you now is, well, inexcusable.
So the supervisor is submitted as 25.
That's a mistake. It was supposed to start
Do they
when?
want it to stay that way?
2024.
January 2024.
David's watching, he's pinging me, so.
And what is the funding source?
It's
Foundational Public Health?
the admin assistant, as I understand it, that is the Medicaid
Oh,
reimbursement.
this is the community's.
It's my
health
understanding
circular.
that they had fully spent all incoming money with the budget that was presented to the board. So was that not the case?
So I have community health nurse supervisor as TST funding. Starting in 2025. Or is that supposed to be 2020? Like, He's writing stuff.
David's dotting me right now.
so which was the other position you were talking about starting in 2025, the supervisor?
yeah,
And how is that one funded?
TST.
Foundational Public Health.
Which supposedly is all spent.
If I could share my screen, I guess I can't, I could log in. See.
He's writing a novel right now.
Okay. That,
Yes, of course.
and then what I'm looking at is TST recommendations, the proposal for the community health nurse supervisor here. Is this supposed to start in 2024 or 2025? On acquisition control, we have it as 2025.
It was submitted as 2025, that was submitted in error, it should have been submitted in 2024.
And if you now put it in 2024, and are we saying that's TST?
It's TST.
If you now put it in 2024, what does that do to the fund?
So when we budgeted using the financial plan, we put everyone full in 2024. So it's already in there. We were anticipating that it would balance the fund out if certain positions started, but the look that we had when we showed it, it had everyone fully starting in 2024. And we were okay.
Showing 2024?
You didn't bring in what was in Questica, you put in what was in their presentation?
Oh,
Yeah, we
lowered
manually
amount,
did
okay.
it.
You meant,
Yeah, we manually updated the financial plan on the fly. It was
based,
not-
so not based on what was in Questica.
Right. So that was that one, and then
So is this a non-substantive correction or is this a hit to the TST fund?
I think it's not gonna be a hit, cause we already budgeted it, we already anticipated in that financial plan that it was going to be in 2024, so let's
So
stop
this
paying-
belonged on the errata list.
Yeah, now that it's brought to our attention, I can find that financial plan really quickly, I think I had it up not too long ago.
I will say again, every office and department has had their budget at least, you know, in total, in the system, since the end of October. We shouldn't be hearing about these things at this point in time.
So we have the community health nurse, is it too small for you guys to see? Okay. That's the one that we said was gonna be a Medicaid match. We have 60,500, does that make sense for the first year? I'd have to pull up another sheet, you guys have seen me going back and forth.
No, the number 25 is the one, that position that we're talking about right now.
The supervisor,
Yeah.
thank you.
And it's in there.
Okay, and it's
Went
in
down
there.
the list and said, how much can we afford?
Yep, we just started adding everything in full. And then we said,
This went old school.
we put in a 10% reversion. We knew we were getting tight at the end of the fund balance, but we were anticipating that there would be some savings in the first year because of when positions get filled. And so if I highlight, these are all the public health ones that we're talking about.
So those would all start in June.
No, based off of, let's see if I can find it again.
It looks like they don't start in January because those are full years.
Yeah, so we
And the
budgeted,
second year is not less or more.
Looks like they're fully loaded. So
we
not
fully-
half
we
year.
fully loaded them for worst case, with the understanding that some of them would take time to fill, and that would make the cushion, because you see in the out year, we get negative. And so that was supposed to give us,
Contributes to the reversion.
right,
So then why are they saying it's starting in,
Because the system has it in January, and when Tara puts together the position control resolution, she looks at what the position information is in Questica, and so that's how this got triggered, is she put, this position is starting January 25. Public Health said, wait a second, this should be 24.
so it was an error on the department's not changing the date.
but if we already budgeted for,
We'll fix it.
Well, yeah,
It sounds like it belonged on the errata list.
and it was just brought to our attention last night, so.
They didn't bring it up to us until now. Or it would have been on our errata list.
So if the direction is still to go with what TST recommended, with when those start dates will be, then that's what the position control will say, unless you want something different. And I can bring that back up again.
but if it's already budgeted for the full year,
So it's not budgeted, it's planned, right? Our financial plan is how we were planning on it, but it's not budgeted that way.
It didn't get into the system correctly. It's not in the budget system correctly. So when we produced the numbers that went into the newspaper, it was not included because that's based on what's in our system. But the board had approved the amount for next year. So we just need to add it in at this point. it shouldn't affect the plan, we've done the financial plan. Not based on what was in Questica
Is
apparently.
this true for more than one position are we talking about? Like, there were multiple
sounds like
positions that
there's
were
three.
supposed to start in June. And you're saying we're gonna fund them all starting in January? And they'll just revert, they'll just increase their reversion because they won't be able to fill them?
So I just wanted to clarify, so our financial plan is not what's in the system, so when we were trying to figure out which packages to approve, in our plan, we put everything fully starting in January. But when we build it into our actual budget, we're gonna build it in at the recommendation of 50% for those positions which are outlined. in this.
Recommendation.
So that's what I'm trying to get clarification. So the medical social worker, it says 50% in 2024. Do you want us in the actual budget to have that position starting in July? Or do you want it to follow what we had put in our financial plan as the worst case? And I was under the impression that the plan was worst case and that you were anticipating not really spending all of that money, pretending on these specific positions that you're approving.
So what was the board's approval in the process? Financial plan aside,
Sure.
did the board approve the recommendation of the committee?
Yes.
All right, so what you approved was these positions starting partway through.
So, for example, on the first line item, it says 113, but that's just for our reference. We actually only approved half of that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that was the request.
That was the request, and the board approved the committee recommendation.
Right.
So,
Change that now, we're gonna put the CST fund in a bad position. But you're saying no because you built the full year into the financial plan?
set the financial plan aside, it's irrelevant at this point.
Well, it's not
bring that
relevant
back up.
if I'm being asked to
Let
change
me bring
my,
back up this.
No, I'm
Position.
trying to figure out what you actually approved. So what the board actually approved was beginning, for example, the medical social worker on July 1 of 24. Is that accurate?
Yes.
All right. What got entered into Questica?
We believe this one started in July.
July. So it's proper, it's what the board approved and it's okay in the system.
That is correct.
So basically what I'm hearing is that David is now saying we wanted it to start January 1,
Is that correct?
which is exactly what their original request is that the board said no to.
yeah, so.
No, the top one is fine.
All right, the top one.
There's
Then
no
let's
issues with that
take
one.
the next one. On the let's step back even more. Which one are they saying is wrong?
The community health nurse supervisor, they entered that in the system for 2025.
And which row is that on the screen?
This right here.
So it's those two FTEs.
They entered
So
it.
that wasn't part of the recommendation of the TST committee. It was, they only recommended funding for the Nurse Family Partnership Manager
Manager.
to begin half year in 24 with a full year in 25. So only one of those two positions is recommended.
And that's what the board approved.
Did they not approve the second position at all, or they approved it to be 100%?
You approved the second position to be 100% beginning in January of 2025.
So what's the error? That's just what you said that's in the
The
system?
error is that it should not have been entered as a 2025 start date. It should have been entered as a 2024 start date.
But if the board approved it for 2025, why should it have been entered for 2024? This is the problem with them coming in last minute. We haven't had time to vet any of what these asks are for correction. And what I would recommend to you is you leave it the way it is and we figure this out and address it in a budget amendment next year.
It's a mistake based on what we decided. I'm all for fixing it, but if it's an ask to us to change the decision-making, then it's too late.
That's different and
To be doing that right now.
obviously we can't figure that out.
No, this one was submitted as a start date of 2025. that is what the TST committee saw. That was what you approved. They came back and said, no, we should not have submitted with the 2025 start date. We should have submitted it with a 2024
Then
start
that's
date.
not something
Too
that-
bad.
Yeah, that's,
So then can I get some clarification on,
If it's out of TST, then it's too bad. But what about if it's out of foundational public health? We send money back?
They have told us repeatedly that all of the public health, foundational
Is used
public
up,
health
right.
has been programmed.
Okay. I just don't wanna put any more lien on TST.
I was under the impression that based on the recommendations here for the positions in which you approved, that that's what was supposed to be put in the budget. So
Right.
if medical social worker is one of the positions you approved, then it would start 50% in 2024.
That's right.
That's what I was coordinating with the budget to make sure that was aligned.
So June of 2024, right?
And that's what was approved.
Yeah, so why not stick with it?
so which one is starting in 2025 then?
that second one under
The
leadership.
community health nurse supervisor?
Yeah,
Yes.
it sounds like they just made the wrong ask, but that ask got approved by the committee and approved by the board. And now the day of deliberations are like, oh, we should have asked for a year, an extra year.
Yeah, it looks
We
like-
already allocated all the TST money. I mean, that's not, it's a,
Right.
Is there any wiggle room? I will advocate for it, even if it's starting in June as well.
We would have to revise the financial plan, and that would take longer than a few minutes to assess it. We believe that what you approved is what we can afford. It is way late to be coming in with this kind of an ask.
We can break, I can look at it.
I'll go ahead and do my other requests. Might as well just keep stirring the pot, right? I want to talk about animal services because I asked for some information after preliminary budget and not sure if you heard back on that. And
Please remind me what it is that.
so for animal services, right, I requested, the information I requested was if we were to pull out, right, kind of like what would be, because Sarah Hawk said that we would not get the amount that we put back in, that it would be, they would have to reassess. So wanted her to kind of at least give us some figures so we could have that conversation. I also asked about, let me go back and look at my notes on all the questions I asked in terms of animal services. I had asked for her to come during that time and kind of present that information to us. Give me a second.
can I explain this to Commissioner Klaus since we're in here while you're looking?
Go ahead.
A little bit.
So this one is a little tricky, so we all put into this animal services. At some point in the past, the county didn't have the money and said, can we negotiate a reduced amount of service? So even though Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater were paying full service, the county paid a reduced amount. It was actually about the same as the others, because we're like half the county, but in terms of percentage per capita, we were paying a reduced amount. We got less service for like calls about barking dogs and certain types of services that the cities were getting, we weren't getting. That was saving us around $300,000 or $400,000 a year. We wanted, the sheriff was getting a lot of calls and it was burdening them, and we wanted to kind of go back to, we were having a little bit better budget times. We were talking about going back to joining the cities at full service. And that was gonna cost us $300,000 or $400,000 extra. We did it. It's like our last budget decision. And then, so what Commissioner Mejia is referring to is during this year's tight budget, we talked, and we've had a lot of issues with, like, it hasn't been as rosy of a full service restoration as we were hoping. So we discussed going back to where we were before to reduce service, to maybe save us $300,000 or $400,000. Well, we had the Director of Animal Services come in and say, not so fast, guys. It wouldn't necessarily be, we can't, like, that was based on a calculation. The way they calculated our reduced service rate was based on the number of calls and it was based on an analysis that was done like 15 years ago. She's like, if you guys are gonna do that again and try to go back, we'd have to redo the analysis and see what percentage of our budget is spent on the kind of calls that you would be taking out of your service, menu. So it was unclear to us whether we'd actually get the same amount of savings. So we ended up saying, let's just keep it where it is for now, because it wasn't clear we were gonna save $300,000 or $400,000, even if we did pull it out. Secondly, we're still trying to work out the problems between the animal services and the sheriff to try to make things better. So there was a hope that things would get better, and there was a lack of clarity about whether we'd save that much money anyway. And so that's why Commissioner Mejia, though, she wanted to see that number, to the best extent possible, what would that number be? So we could have an actual decision point. Do we wanna go back to the old level, lower level service? How much money would we actually save if we did it?
And so one of the complaints that we heard, and Commissioner Fournier, I see your hand.
Well, I was just gonna ask, there's also concerns that we're not really maybe receiving those additional higher level services too, right?
Yeah, that was that's what I said charitably about, like, it wasn't as rosy of a situation as.
Okay, you're just more diplomatic than I am.
Diplomatic, I mean, the sheriff is saying they're not responding, and then we brought in the director who said, well, you're right about that, but a lot of that's because we were lower staffed, and they actually refunded because they were not able to staff it and they weren't able to do what they had promised. They're actually giving us some money back.
But I never did hear that amount.
81,000.
Okay.
They've reduced it from over 1 million to 943,000. She also presented a corrective action plan, if you will, on how they were going to address the issues in the future.
And so that was, I think, that's specifically because what I asked in terms, right? Because they were like, this is when, and so I was like, well, can we see how that's worked out from the time you came to present to like now? And seeing like, is it getting any better? Because what she said is that TCOM wasn't transferring the calls to them, or there wasn't.
That's right.
And so it's like, well, is that fixed now? Like, have you noticed an increase in calls? Like, how's that relationship with TCOM improved?
Right, and I thought, and I apologize, this may be on me, because my impression at the time is you wanted to start to do regular check-ins next year and give them a little time for that to take effect, because as she was saying in that meeting, they had just implemented the phone call and gone back to 24/7, and
Gotten their
there were a
staffing
few
level
things that were
fixed.
very, very new. So I've talked to her, she's ready to come in and meet with the board every quarter with data and information. I would have to look to see if she sent me anything since that meeting, but that could be on me.
Commissioner Fournier?
And they do not, this does not include like large animal response. We've had a horse running wild through Tenino for like 2.5 months.
Livestock
That is
they will
correct.
not deal with livestock. Yeah,
Thank you.
that was a point of discussion.
Yes, it was.
So. I won't be as diplomatic either in my next choice of words. I've just been very, very frustrated. And you know, I'm not sure here, like where we can start getting this information, because the whole reason, I mean, I pushed this for full funding really hard because it was going to help address this gap that we were seeing in our community. And I did it with the caveat that this was gonna be on a pilot basis. Because what we were trying to address was the gap, the dog designations, just the different issues that were coming up. And now, right, it's just understanding that there's been issues with hiring, understanding all of that, but I also haven't seen like an improvement in relationship with the sheriff's office. I haven't really seen, right, there's still just a lot of frustration. And if we're going to be paying for these services at full cost, and sure, we do get a refund at the end of the year for the services that, you know, but you know, it's depends. And I don't know, like, are they going to be operating a 24-hour service now? It didn't sit well with me, right, that even though we said that this was gonna be on a pilot basis, that then, you know, they're like, oh no, then we just have to completely reassess basically what, if we decided to cut back, what it would be. It just leaves us, I guess it was not definitely was not my intent when, you know, I tried to go for the full funding, and it was really just as a pilot to see how it was gonna work out, and if it was gonna be beneficial for the whole community, for us, for the sheriff's office who was getting the calls, for us, we were also getting calls. And so
So there was information requested at the time that she came and presented to the board. She sent me the information requested on November 6th, and I forwarded that to commissioners that same day. So she did send the JAS field stats. As far as the, you know, when, if we were to reduce the budget, what services would we not receive? Again, it had not been my understanding that you were looking for that immediately, so that would have been something that I did not follow up with her on. And I did talk to her about coming in and meeting with the board quarterly with regular data reports. So we're set to start that in like January or February.
I have a question or comment.
go ahead, sir.
My understanding, like animal control it is truly a law enforcement function. And to actually be able to do it, you have to be a limited commission officer. And when I've looked into creating, you know, animal control people before, they don't even allow them to be certified in Washington State unless they're part of a law enforcement agency. So if you like actually want people that have the authority and the ability to do animal control functions, they have to be a part of a law enforcement agency. They have to go through CJTC, and then they get a limited commission to perform that function. And if those things aren't met, then they really can't even do it, is my understanding. Maybe Commissioner Edwards can speak to that.
No, I've been out of it too long, Wayne. Anything I'd comment on, it would be past
Okay, well, I
tense.
mean, I'm pretty confident in that statement. Like, you have to be, it's a law enforcement function. You have to be a limited commission officer, and in order to do that, you have to go through CJTC, and they won't let anyone that's not associated with a law enforcement agency go through that certification class. So, I mean, that
I
that
don't
might
think,
be something to think
Commissioner,
about.
that was not the case, and I would be happy to forward to you the information, the presentation that we received from Sarah, and arrange a time for you to meet with her and get the details.
There is an issue though, that he's right, that, well, I don't know if he's right, but there was an issue where in the past, the animal control officers were getting these limited commissions from a sheriff, and that was
That's right.
that was a point of conflict that at a certain point, Sheriff Snaza was not doing that anymore, refused to do that.
Sheriff Sanders,
No, Sheriff Snaza.
Snaza, that's
Before
true,
Sanders.
Snaza stopped.
Yeah,
Snaza stopped doing it, and that was an issue. Now, it didn't mean they couldn't do anything, but they couldn't do everything, so I'm not
Right.
sure.
I think the legislature changed as well at one,
I think that we really need a conversation with Sarah, and again, she is ready to come every quarter and meet with you.
I think a
There
background.
was an issue with tickets.
I mean, a point of background, I think, is that when Thurston County, it's not like animal services is not set up to be like, here's a menu of things you can hire us to do and pick your menu. Like, they did that out of kind of duress because Thurston County was considering pulling out altogether in tight budget times. And so they did this special accommodation to create an analysis and come up with an alternate contract for us. But it's old at this point, and so if we were to go back and do that, it's not like, to them, it's not just like they just spring it back and forth. It's not a toggle button on a thing. It's kind of a big deal, and they're not gonna wanna do that without sort of recalibrating that arrangement, and they really don't wanna deal with that arrangement at all, cause it creates complexities for them.
Well, and the board at the time, the additional money was added to go to full services. The board had a conversation at that time about, you can't just go in and out and
Right.
have a sustainable model.
Year to year, yeah, I mean, it really has to be a long-term decision. I mean, Commissioner Mejia is correct about, we talked about it as a pilot, so she's not wrong about that, but I think if animal services were at the table, they would have pushed back and said, we don't really
They would need time to figure out where they would.
want you guys flipping back and forth.
I invited them to the table. I
Yeah.
invited them for public comment. I invited them to write letters and
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I'm just
zero
guessing
input
that
from them.
that's what you're hearing is kind of, they're not gonna make it easy.
Commissioner on the job.
They're not gonna make it easy for us to just flip back and forth between the
It
two.
probably is a good strategy, right, to start off with that quarterly briefing opportunity. Because I think with any contract, especially when it's far enough removed, you know, it's a little out of sight, out of mind, it helps provide that transparency and the accountability. And either, you know, through that process can address the concerns of the board, or it begins to have that conversation, is there a different model to pursue?
Are you, Commissioner Mejia, going to make a proposal to reduce the amount in the budget for JESCOM?
Well, you know, I was hoping that they had sent in numbers, because it's hard for me to just say, I'm gonna, you know, I want to reduce the numbers without knowing like what services it is that we're like, that's kind of why, you know, I had asked for this information to actually see like, okay, if we're gonna be cutting back on something, like what is it that we're gonna be cutting back on?
So I can go back, I have the change request when we increased the budget in 2022. And that was supposed to provide 2 additional officers. That was what the contract increase was for.
Right, and they've had a difficult time.
Right, right.
You know, blah,
But
blah, blah.
that was the intent of the
Um,
contract increase, was the 2 additional officers.
Right, to address things like barking dogs, which I know they haven't been doing. But again, one of the things she presented was a corrective action plan, that they had already put in place, to be able to start addressing the issues. And then she did talk about some of the barriers. The the thing is, we can't just take it back and have them not do the things, because as she talked about, the top calls now are different than what they had been in the past. And I don't know what it would take to do that analysis of if the Board of County Commissioners wanted to, one of the things she'd have to know is how much money are we talking about? You know, if you wanted to pull 100,000 or 300,000, that would look very different. And Commissioner Edwards is wanting to jump in.
Well, being I haven't got in the middle of this just yet. Let me be not politically correct and say that we expected, when we gave an additional 400,000, I think, I'm just,
245 a year.
how much?
245 a year.
245.
Gave an additional 245
Yes.
for law enforcement services or services in rural America that never happened. Basically, it never happened. Now, why didn't it happen? We can't find officers to employ, animal control officers, whatever it was. But nothing changed. We gave whatever we gave, and we got no additional benefit
Services
out of it. And then we got $82,000 back.
this year,
Yeah, but, and,
or last year.
yeah, we did get some, did we get that back last year as well?
Yes.
Okay, so we gave 250 and we got 80 back. Let's just round it out. That's not a very good return on nothing. I mean, I can't hardly emphasize that enough, that it's not a very good return on nothing.
She's the third director since the board did the restoration.
No, she's been the director, cause
Couple
she,
years now.
yeah, she was
3
there when I,
years.
when, cause
Only a few years.
3 years.
Helped hire her in 20.
I was like, she was there when, you know.
We've had
when
a few directors.
Anyway,
come
I
through.
kind of remember Commissioner Mejia's pilot, and I thought, well, okay. But even pilot, I thought was a stretch,
I
but.
know, I pushed so hard on this. and
So I
it
was just kind of going along, okay. But I'm going back to my poor return on our investment. And so I don't know what's
Twisted your arm
coming.
on that one too.
Twisted my arm. It was the very last budget
And
decision.
I was like, come on, let's just do it.
I don't know what we ought to do, but we're not getting a good deal, so I would certainly hope this is fixed. We're locked in. They've had their budget. They approved it last night, I think.
And I backed off of this because Sarah, she made it pretty clear that, of course, we could move the variables around, but based on the specific items that we were reduced service in the past, those items were not gonna yield the same savings because, as Robin said, the call volume had shifted and those were not as what we were foregoing wasn't as expensive as an item. So she made it sound like, I remembered it being 363 or 400, and then when you guys told me 245, and then she's sitting here saying we'd have to go through this analysis and it's likely to be considerably less, I start thinking, well, if we're gonna save $100,000 or 150, we're gonna create more than a $150,000 problem for ourselves by not, I mean, because I don't know that we've gotten nothing out of it. I'm sure there's been some response, but I mean, that's why I backed away, is just the feeling that this is not gonna create $300,000 or $400,000 worth of extra general fund capacity. It's probably gonna end, once we shake every tree and wring out the analysis and come up with a new ILA, we're gonna save $100,000 and we're gonna have a whole nother $100,000 worth of problems. So it just didn't seem like a good.
Well, we can't do anything about it right now, but let's get on it first thing in January or something. I guess give her an opportunity to come in, maybe. But we do need to fix it, because that's a poor business plan.
It really, I mean,
So what else you got, Commissioner Mejia? Juicy topics do you have for us?
I know, sorry. Last,
Oh, no.
Something that can top that?
no. Just gonna bring in the coroner position and see if commissioners wanted to discuss that since it was in public comment, written public comment. And
I don't know, where do we get the money?
that's, I was just like, I'll bring it up because it,
I'll move this board back over here. Because it seems like Commissioner Menser and I just got done thinking. There's the board.
Yeah, we already spent $400,000 today
that we didn't want to spend.
on the, rolling back the cuts to the prosecutor and sheriff. So
So
that,
there's just no,
Hopefully it'll help in the future.
so I feel less ability to do something like what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Than I did a few hours ago.
maybe I should have brought
I
it
don't
first thing.
deny that he needs the help. Don't deny it, but we can't do everything.
I guess just throw a pitch out there. Keep stirring the pot, might as well, right? We will be losing that certification from the state, right? So our coroner's office will no longer be certified. And that means there's gonna be a reduction in revenue coming in for autopsies. For new commissioners, they get 40% of the autopsy cost.
It was 25.
I thought it was 40, and then it would be reduced to 25 if they were not certified.
Oh, yeah, cause I think we figured it out and it was gonna be about $30,000 or something like that
And so
reduction.
the legislator changed and we and basically they said in order for the coroner's office to be certified, this was one of the positions that was required. So just in that sense, right, we want Thurston County, I feel like, right, to be able to have the best services and to be able to, in the end, these kind of certifications do matter, whether it's just revenue coming in or if it's, just for other reasons. They're there for a reason. And so if we're not going to, we're gonna go down this path, I know that there's money, I know, but, I just, wanna throw my last pitch into that we are no longer gonna have a certified coroner's office if this position is not added
Is
in.
there any opportunity to restructure what is in the coroner's budget? So were you mentioning to me that he's going out for a contract?
So he is going out for a contract. And I believe he's using the funding that he was given for that senior pathologist to do that contract. I'm trying to ping Lauren right now to see if she has answers.
So it doesn't sound like he's pursuing the option to fill the position any longer. And that's what I guess I'd ask. Is there an opportunity to take a current position, reclassify it to the position he needs to be able to maintain or get certified, because I don't think he is right now, but to get the certification and just continue to contract for medical examiner services? And would he be amenable to that?
My position, I hate to be the bad guy on this, but this is a last minute change that I don't see we've got the money to make it happen, that's all.
Nothing's final until the 15th.
Until we vote.
Robin did say that right at the beginning, so.
But I don't know who we'd take the money away from to fill this void.
Okay, those were all my items. I'll stop stirring the pot.
It might be something to come back and discuss at the midterm. Once this goes into effect, who knows?
How soon does he need that position for certification though? I think
Is
the
it-
board already, the coroner brought this before the board last year or the year before.
I feel like he brought it in the midterm last year as
I
well.
thought it was last year.
And
No,
we kicked the
I'm
bucket down the road.
And the board put it off for a year.
I don't remember which one.
Let me just
Certification
mention a
tied to
couple
the
of.
chief deputy role or to,
In part.
The accreditation needs to happen by January 1st, 2025.
So we got some time to work on.
When?
The accreditation needs to be by January 1, 2025. So it couldn't be delayed for a whole year, but
Okay, I gotta throw something out on accreditation. As the county sheriff, I was sold a bill of goods, I guess, that, boy, if you become accredited, you are really something. And so I worked hard, spent a lot of money, got accredited. And I've got a plaque on my wall I can bring in if you wanna see it. And that's the only benefit that the FTE time involved in accreditation, everything that went with accreditation, I didn't get any reduction in risk analysis from insurance. They based it still on your history. Nothing about, well, you're accredited now, so we're gonna give you a good deal. Got nothing out of it, except with my peers, I don't know, they made me president of the Sheriff's Association, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if it came because of that, but I was one of the first entities accredited in the state of Washington. And the taxpayers did not get any benefit out of it.
I had almost forgotten that those two were connected for the coroner, because what I heard the coroner arguing for a lot more strenuously than the accreditation was the kind of his need to do his job, having, somebody to relieve him. It was more about the functionality. He was arguing much more strenuously about the need for the functionality of that position more than he was arguing, the sky falls if we're not accredited. That kind of piggybacks on what you're saying, Commissioner Edwards. That's not what I heard him making his top argument, and I would like to be able to give him that position,
Sure.
and maybe we can get there,
I don't know his layout exactly. I was always afraid of the coroner, because the coroner was the only one in the state that could arrest the sheriff. And I guess it's still that way. So,
So I guess my request would be, can we bring this for consideration during budget amendment and see if it's something, maybe revenue just comes in next year and just,
I start shipping all my stuff to my parents' house so the
yeah,
county gets the
there we
taxes.
go. And so Jennifer, you're gonna take us out of it.
and if he needs a position as a chief deputy, maybe working, I don't know what's wrong with a working chief deputy. I was a working sheriff, my undersheriff worked. Everybody pulled their share, especially when you had a real incident that happened. So maybe it doesn't even take a new FTE, maybe it just takes a designation of an existing FTE. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the coroner's job that well. It's an important job, but, it isn't the coroner's fault that we went from 10 fatal overdoses a year, and I think within 5 years, we were at 150. It's not the coroner's fault, for sure, but it does represent a failure of society to fix that problem. and it continues to be a very serious ongoing problem. And mainly that has to do with fentanyl. Anyway, it's not the coroner's fault, but it's a reality that he's dealing with, and the cost of all those autopsies are killing us.
Those are all my things. That's it.
Anything else that anyone wants to bring up?
I'm looking at the submitted list by a citizen, and they're all good ideas to a degree, but I don't see any money. I mean, that's what I'm looking at, that's what we're doing here today, is scrutinizing the budget to see if there's any extra money somewhere we can scrub out, and I don't see it.
Every single one of these would cost a considerable amount of money.
Yes.
With no funding source identified for any of them.
And some of them, if we were to implement, we'd be short about $4 or $5 million to figure out the rest of it. So I just can't see that, it's just not there in this case.
All right. Nothing else? All right.
Okay.
Commissioner Claus, Commissioner Fournier?
Nothing from me.
I guess I just have one question. I don't even know what my question would be though. So much we've talked about. Are there any requests on the table that we've denied that we think are important but would be relatively cheap to fund, like under 100,000 or under 50,000? Like any, I don't know.
I have to say, we might have had some of those, because I remember a discussion with Commissioner Menser and I, because we were gonna be cutting a lot from everybody's budget, we wanted to have some compassion while we were cutting, so that for those things that were $7,000, I don't know what, I think you had a
Yeah, I
threshold of
kind of
15
laid
or
out a
something.
philosophical approach of like, we're gonna be saying no to everything of significant size. So I'm inclined to say yes to everything that's kind of small, cause it might be something that really helps the group in some way.
Yeah,
But that we can afford it. And that's why we got into that thing on the reclasses.
Yeah.
We started out trying to do the small reclasses, and we got gummed up there, as I explained this morning. But I think to a large degree, we did fund most of the small requests, because on maybe under 50 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Things that were, over 50 were scrutinized a lot more carefully. But I mean, it's a good question. There's nothing that really comes right to mind in terms of me answering your question of something that we didn't fund that was small.
I do think we tried to do all of them.
Tried to do that. Because like the requests were all pretty good,
There was a lot of agony for a couple weeks.
yeah.
there are almost always good requests that the departments have.
But nothing that anyone can think of that's still on the table but has been denied, that's like that cheap.
One of the small stuff that the board said no to were things that could be absorbed. So like one of the items was a emergency management asked for $10,000 towards a communications project. It was one-time money in 2024. The board said, go ahead and do it within your current funding structure. So it's $10,000, they could certainly find $10,000 in their current budget. So it wasn't no, it was just not for more money. I'm looking at the 34. We were gonna find a different way to fund those. A lot of it was no in the general fund, but we got creative and found other ways. And then most of the stuff was just vague. They said no to the community, so it was a CPED, but that's a reclass. And they said no to all the reclasses. I'm looking on the list for anything they said no to that was small, not a reclass, not funded some other way, or, you know, told go ahead, but you can absorb it. There's really not that many things.
Okay. Well, I think my only final request is, regarding the approximately 400,000 that we had to, give back from the cuts for law enforcement and prosecutor. You said you were pretty certain that we can't go any lower than that. Could you just maybe double check with the attorneys just in case? I know probably you're right, but
I'd be happy to ask the attorneys. I will suggest to you that usually when it comes to financial stuff, the attorneys call me and Brandon. So,
okay,
but I'd be happy to chat with them.
okay. Thank you.
But short, I guess, do we need to clarify, but short of an answer in the affirmative from the commissioner, we gotta go ahead at some point here.
We need decisions today.
So, but that'll be a possibility of
Right,
reversing
I can,
things. if
I
we
can
get
chat
the
with
right answer.
Elizabeth and if there's any ability to go lower, I can bring that back. But today, the assumption is we're gonna go with the amount as presented.
And I remember when you were, going back to that, when you were laying out your approach, you said something about, for the prosecutor, you were taking the civil division out because their functionality in terms of our supplanting and maintenance of effort is about their criminal prosecution arm, correct?
Right.
So this is the proportion of their cut that would have applied to their criminal, or how does that?
No, it was the whole cut. We looked at the whole cut, but we only looked at, you know, what's the difference in maintaining the prosecutor's criminal arm. And
Is that how-
apparently there's, it turns out there's a little more that we need to pull out, the family support function, they said we need to pull out, that's not about the criminal arm, but
So when you say pulling it out, that means it's pulled out of these two numbers?
both of those
Right.
numbers, right. So the cost of the civil division within the prosecutor's office is 1.7 million roughly. I think it's 1.7. We were looking at that this morning.
Do you not have to roll back the proportion of the cut that pertains to, couldn't we proportion that out? Like, let's say they're half
But
civil,
the-
half criminal.
The 411's off the table, the amount that you need to maintain in accordance with the resolution.
Didn't care about that.
Right,
Not
we
anymore.
don't care about that anymore. We're gonna
Because
restore.
this is their criminal gap.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got it. Just trying to find a way to kind of massage that number, but it doesn't look like we can.
We
I mean,
tried
I
to-
at least
we
I
already
understand.
tried to take
Yeah,
that into
I understand
consideration.
I just wanted to make sure because they're doing, you know, they're this big, but there's really only this that pertains to the law and justice
That's right.
tax supply.
That's-
They do a lot
They're
of
this
civil,
big, this much of it pertains to law and justice, this little bit.
civil
doesn't,
smaller,
yeah,
yeah, a lot smaller.
much smaller. And that's filled out on the cost plan, on a 60-40 split. All right. Nicole, take it over at the proviso review.
Yep, so Jennifer has the proviso, that was what we had from the midterm, she has redlined it. So some of these items on here started way before I was here, so I'm gonna have to defer to Robin on some of them or some history and context. So it looks like number one is something that's standing. Says that any vacant positions have to have board approval, so it looks needs to stay on the proviso. Number
Just to speak to number one,
okay,
this is the proviso that gives you the ability, should you choose, to implement a hiring freeze.
Cause it says may be required.
That's right, it
We're not
says
making it
may
every
be,
single time, but we're
You-
reserving that authority.
yes. You're not
Cause there was a
doing it.
point where we were requiring it, right? And that was
There
causing a
was.
lot of gumming up of approvals, and so
It did,
we changed, we liberalized it a little bit.
yes, we did.
so yeah, I'm gonna have to refer to you, Robin, a lot on these provisos, cause you don't have context.
Right, why don't I go down the
Yes.
proviso list? Proviso number 2 is, when the BHASO split from the county receives part of the property tax, also known as millage, that is specifically for, DD and mental health. And the board agreed to transfer $100,000 every year to the BHASO from that tax revenue. So that's number 2. We continue to assume that we would be transferring that 100,000. Item number 3 is the state of Washington shares liquor revenue with the counties, all the counties. And of the liquor sharing, the profit sharing, the state requires that 2% of what the county receives may be solely used for behavioral health issues. Since the BHASO is addressing behavioral health on the county's behalf, we pass the entire amount of that 2% to the BHASO.
How much money is that
Oh, man,
roughly?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I would have to look.
Is it like a couple 100,000, you think? I'm just rough,
No, it's not that much.
not that much.
I don't think so.
I mean, it's not like the
Liquor
gambling tax, which is about nothing compared to what we did, but,
I have to look it up.
Yeah.
I,
well, the only reason I asked that question is the state broke away, basically. And they're putting a lot of funding, and rightfully so, as far as I'm concerned. They've closed the mental health hospitals and dumped it all on local government. I would like to see if I get a choice, I'm not saying I'm gonna get a choice, but if it was my prerogative, and I served over there with the BHO folks, they do a great job. But I would like to see those alcohol dollars, if you will, go towards traffic safety myself, because we have a lot of DWI deaths. Now, the BHO tries to get ahead of those in working with people with addictions and all that, so
right.
just something to think about. The state's rightfully pumping a lot of money in, and I don't know if it's enough money maybe to do the job that it seems to.
So help me understand how traffic safety
Just from
is-
drunk driving.
treatment and
It's not, it's different. Drunk driving, to
so we
stop
have
drunk
to spend
driving.
this money on behavioral health treatment.
Oh, we have to?
Yes, we're 2% of what we collect from the
Okay,
liquor.
I didn't know it was a have
District.
to, I thought it was a
It's, we're
choice.
required. Not the whole 98%, we can spend as we please and goes into the general fund, but that 2% of what we receive must be spent, and that's what we transfer to the BHO.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Sure. Number 5 and number 4 and number 5 are positions in the sheriff's office that are school resource officers. And the board approved these positions on the condition that the school districts that they are supporting cover at least 75% of the cost. So those provisos
that's what's
continue
happening.
into the,
Yep.
it is what's happening, cause at one point, one of these districts was going to stop. Heidi said, can't we just have that be general fund now? I said, here's a proviso, if they stop paying, then the position goes away, and they made a deal with the school district to continue, so they are continuing. Item number 6 is for, positions related to the Involuntary Treatment Act. Now,
I wasn't sure if this one should change because of the change in the contract, but
exactly. So we no longer, this proviso should probably be amended, because, in light of what is required by state law on how counties are reimbursed by the BHASO, we can only be reimbursed on a rate that is the average of the prior 3 years of actual expenditures. So excluding indirect costs by statute. So we are no longer fully covering costs. Our costs are going to exceed the revenue. So I would suggest removing this
completely.
proviso. Yes.
So there were positions that they came and said, we need this position, and we said, well,
Positions
gonna
had
get-
no end dates on them. We would not remove the positions.
now we just hope they're covered for the most part by the rates.
They are covered for the most part by the way the rate is structured.
But not, it still
Not 100%.
doesn't,
We're
not
still
the
gonna
full
get a
extent,
hit.
right?
Right.
But it's not like we're proposing to eliminate them, so this proviso is not doing anything functionally.
Correct. Item number 7 is TCOM 911.
States that the revenue we receive, we'll just pass it right through.
Oh, that's right, thank you. So 7 is TCOM 911 used to be a function within the county, and it separated to become a nonprofit organization. It's quasi-governmental, but the state of Washington does not recognize it as a government entity. So the county has to collect the tax revenue and pass it through. And this proviso says we will only pass through the amount of money that we receive in revenue. We will pass through the full amount, no more, no less. And we've got that because we set the appropriation at a little more than we think the tax is gonna be. So that there's at no point in time when we don't pass through the whole amount. And the same is true of number 8, the tourism promotion area. That is, by the way, we're working on the need to restructure that, as I've told you before. But the proviso would be the same, that whatever money is collected, the county is the fiduciary, and we pass it through to be managed by the Visitor and Convention Bureau. We pass through no more or less than what we actually received. Number 9 is,
This is for the climate mitigation plan, and I adjusted the numbers based on the numbers that are in the budget for 24 and 25.
all right, so that means that whatever doesn't get spent gets rolled into future years. And the amount is reserved solely for the purpose of the plan. Number 10 allows the assessor, this is unique, this allows the assessor to shift costs for this one particular position between the general fund and the real estate excise tax technology fund at the discretion of the assessor. When the board authorizes positions, you authorize them to be paid out of specific funds. This gives the assessor discretion to charge it to either fund, depending on how much money is sitting in the REIT tech fund and how much capacity he has in his general fund budget. We are suggesting that that continue, and should the bill pass that the assessor's been talking about,
It's like an 80-20 split and it's identified for how much is for the
it's
assessor
something
and
like
for this
that,
one.
then we would revisit this, but at this time it works. Item number 11 is for the auditor, in any non-presidential election year, we allow the auditor to transfer general fund appropriation that's intended for elections to the election reserve amount. 2024 is a presidential year, so we should clarify in this proviso that it's only for 2025.
So if I do general fund appropriations in 2025,
Yes.
okay.
Item number 12 is for ARPA. And this is specifically for Scram, and we probably,
I don't know why we called it out specifically last year or in this one either, since we appropriate the ARPA dollars differently.
well, there was,
Was there anticipated carry forward, like remaining?
right, it was, the provisos were based on reporting program results.
Can we scrap this proviso 12?
Yes, we could.
Let's just do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of outdated.
It wasn't about the money, it was about the
carry.
reporting.
Okay.
We've had those reports.
So 12 is out.
Yep. Number 13 was the PST care coordinator. Oh, these positions would only continue as long as the caseload was 55 or higher. We put this in because the caseload for this particular court had gotten down extremely low. They were regulating the number of people who could come through. So the board approved the additional positions only if the caseload increased. And we could, I do believe it's well over 55 now.
Is that because of COVID, the numbers dropped? or
No,
something?
it wasn't like a COVID thing. It was, there were other reasons that the numbers were down. So I would think that we could discontinue this as long as their numbers are still up. So we should check that.
Well, considering that they're going to have some cuts, I'm guessing that they're gonna be busier than ever, so.
Right.
It's already out of date because we're already 2023's over. Would it have to be updated if we're gonna keep it?
If
I would have
we
to change the
keep
year,
it, we
yeah.
need to change the 2023 to 2024 and 5.
Yeah.
I'm checking with Frankie on numbers right now, but yeah.
Then we have the, number 14 was the, positions approved, in 2021 were for, specifically for ERP, and only can continue as long as the plan is to discontinue and replace CAMs and leave this in.
So is this done?
Well,
No.
this position got rolled into the ERP upgrade and it's not sitting with Public Works funding anymore, so,
It wasn't, at the
Was it
time
never?
it was passed.
okay.
Do we need this then?
I want number 14 to stay in because they only got extra FTE support because they're going to decommission camps, and that is a big lift. So we've extended these positions, but they need to decommission camps. That's the condition.
Is CAMS designated somewhere so the public might know what CAMS is?
I couldn't tell you what
It's
camp.
a capital asset management system, I think is what it is.
Thank you.
All those letters
The
work.
ERP is intended to replace it.
Okay.
I guess what I'm asking is, it sounds like there was a point in time in 2021 where we weren't sure if they would, like, we needed to put this side rail on them. And at this point, is there any possibility that they're not gonna replace CAM so that we still need this side rail? There is, okay. Okay. No?
Number 15 is, well, we could take that out this time. I would still leave number 15 in. All reclassifications must have the agreement of human resources.
You're leaving that in, you say?
Yes, even though you didn't approve any reclassifications specifically as line items, people are gonna come in with reclasses through the year. And
Okay.
this says that if they're gonna pay in any form throughout the biennium for a reclass, it's gotta have the agreement of HR. Number 16 is new.
Do you wanna talk about the new ones or do you wanna talk about the ones on the left-hand side that I pulled out?
Oh, you've deleted.
Left-hand side or right-hand side?
I guess that's the right-hand side on my right.
Okay.
In the light gray section of your piece of paper.
Mhm.
Maybe, no, I think these are fine to come out because we've already gotten past all of these. So let's go on to number 16. 16, Nicole, you wanna take that one?
Number 16, that's for the public safety sales tax. So this is what we spoke about on the board here, our maintenance of effort. And the two new funds, we're asking to build the expense authority inside of the public safety sales tax funds based on that maintenance of effort and what the new requests are for that fund. And to make that official change, I believe during the amendment 1, because there's gonna be some heavy lifting with HR and a lot of the financial staff to be able to change those account codes.
Make sure my words make sense, please.
Sure. And then number 17,
Is regarding the fair coordinator position for a 12-month period based on the hire date. I guess that's up for discussion. That position would have to generate 75% of revenue.
I have a adjustment that I'd like to make to that. We heard from longtime Fair Board members yesterday, and those that have been dedicated to working the fair for a lot of years. And I think they made a very strong argument for adjusting that 75% of cost and revenue within 12 months. I think we could easily say 24 months. So I don't know how my seatmates feel about that argument that was given, but I think that does make sense.
I did agree with Teresa's comment that it, like if they were to start in May, that it would be like 12 months after their start date. I think for this position, we go to, it's on a, I think, we're on a pilot, right? So we're trying to see if it's gonna work. So I think 90,000 is a feasible goal. If, like, they're close, like, let's say if they're like at 80 something, like, I think that's a conversation we can come back and be like, you know, great job, and like, you know, like, we can either give a thumbs up to continue. I think we can have that flexibility as a board, but I think to just have those goals of revenue, because that's what needs to happen at the fair. It needs to kind of, we need to start bringing in that revenue. It shouldn't be, as Josh likes to call it, the Goldilocks effect, where all these things have to align in order for us to have a successful fair. And, you know, we should, I was talking with some people from the EDC about this position, right, and my excitement about it, and they were like, oh my gosh, like, we had completely forgotten that you can rent space at the fairgrounds, right? Like, I used to remember that there were weddings there and all these things there. So I think, you know, just once this position gets started, I think that goal is achievable. And again, for me, if it's close by, like, I'm willing to just be like, okay, like, you know, as long as there's that effort put in.
Why don't we split the baby, give them 6 months to get their feet on the ground, and then 12 months to get the revenue up and make it 18.
Okay,
That
18.
makes sense.
Right, so I'm gonna reword this to, provided that the fair coordinator will generate 75% of the cost of the position in revenue within 18 months of the date of hire.
Of the start date.
And I think that'll help on the recruitment for the position.
Not good?
No, actually, I do not disagree with you, because based on what start date versus hire date could be, I mean,
Yeah, it could be 3 months later, because
yeah,
they've
if
got
they,
another job.
negotiate a closing date.
I think giving them 18 months would help somebody make a decision. Well, I think I'll try that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
And then the one proviso I don't see on here that I do remember talking about was, the board added, positions with a grant, and I think they did that just here recently.
Is it public
Um,
defense?
Those positions, the grant needs to, those positions are only authorized as long as the grant covers 100% of the
Is that the
cost.
Oakland
I'd
grant?
have to look,
Okay.
so we'll add that. Anything else that the board wants to put a condition on?
I'm just curious on that one. Seems like we have a lot of positions where they're grant funded, and why would you single that one out?
Because we didn't put an end date on it, we generally put an end date on others. And you didn't put an end date on it because there's a promise of the state that it's going to continue, but they
Expectation.
wouldn't write the contract for that.
As long as there's some reason to do it that way.
No end.
Right.
Yeah, I think that had something to do with recruitment as well, that,
Right,
Yeah.
to try to make it easier to
Yeah.
recruit, no end date, but
Right.
it's only funded as long as the grant funding is coming in.
Would it make sense to add a proviso, just all positions that are grant funded are,
No.
as long as the grants are received,
No, I don't
unless
think so.
otherwise stipulated? Cause I'm sure we have other positions that are grant funded that don't have end
We
dates,
do
or
have
don't
other
have.
positions, but it doesn't make sense in every case.
Frankie did say that they are maintaining a higher than 55 caseload.
How many do they have right now?
He said so they're right at 55 right now. But
They're
annual
55.
annual average is, I mean, they have fluctuation as people come in and come back
Sure.
out. So, but they're maintaining 55 over the course.
Thank you. Commissioner Klaus, did you have something?
I just have a couple clarifying questions on number 16, about the operating transfer for the public safety tax. So what do operating transfers look like? Would that mean like on an annual basis, we're taking money directly from the general fund and automatically putting it into the public safety fund?
Yes.
Okay.
In the maintenance of effort amount.
Okay.
So when we talked earlier about how we really want to do direct appropriation, this is the exact opposite of that.
It is the opposite of that, but there's a reason.
Yeah.
Can I jump in on your question there? So if we're transferring, so for instance, the sheriff's office, $26 million, right, in our maintenance of effort, and we're transferring the revenue over into the public safety sales tax, that also includes grant revenue. Are we booking the grant revenue now in PST and the public safety sales tax, or in a general fund?
We'd,
Because then that wouldn't really be the true amount that gets transferred over every year.
it's technical and we can sort that out.
I just didn't want that to be a discussion when we actually do the transfer. It may not look like 26.4 million if the grant
It's
revenue is
going
somewhere
to
else.
be any amount of revenue that comes into the general fund. If we transfer that, that'd reduce the transfer from the general fund if the revenue's getting booked over there.
Okay,
So,
just wanted to make sure that was
Yeah.
clear.
but yes, it's ongoing in the amount that we come down to.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
I guess I had one follow-up question. I feel like it's probably unlikely, but like if the general fund revenue dropped for any reason, would we still have to maintain that same number?
That's maintenance of effort.
Dang.
That is that is why most people shy away from anything having to do with the maintenance of effort, because it locks you in.
Yeah,
But in a couple of years, you'll be so far past it, it won't make much difference.
Yeah, no, all of the growth in sales tax and property tax can be used for general fund purposes. And which would, in this scenario, not include new costs for the sheriff, prosecutor, or public defense.
okay.
So that frees up money to bolster up the court, do more for the assessor, have another position for the coroner, all the other things that we need to
I
do.
would think those three departments are at least 50% of the general fund. Sheriff's like 37%. Prosecutor's quite sizable as well.
The sheriff, what
You just
person
saw
is
this
sheriff
last
law
night.
enforcement?
It says law
I have
enforcement.
I got my things,
You're right back there.
yeah.
Packet.
You gotta back out, this does not include corrections. Corrections continues to sit in the general.
Right.
So. But it does take out,
You want
A
a
good
little
bit of the
tiny
pressure.
wordsmithing
sure,
on 16?
oh, we gotta do.
We need a lot of
We need
wordsmithing
a
on
lot
that
of
one.
wordsmithing there, but what is your
Oh, okay,
suggestion?
well, if you're gonna change it, I'm not gonna try and,
Okay.
Kind of clunky.
Oh, it's very
It's-
clunky. I was just
yeah.
trying to get the idea on paper so we could have a conversation about it.
Okay,
I knew
so
this was
you-
not final.
you can make those type of adjustments. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Robin, can you just elaborate real quick on what you just said about corrections staying in the general fund? Yeah, I just was wondering what you meant by that.
The costs of the jail, which is what, about $22 million roughly?
Look that up.
It's right around the 20 million mark, will remain in the general fund, the total cost.
Meaning the
No
public safety
cost of
tax
the-
doesn't apply to the
exactly.
jail.
It was only
It
law
does-
enforcement.
does not.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
They have the detention sales tax,
Yes,
but that doesn't cover. The detention sales tax like 8 million,
Fraction.
Not
and
enough.
it costs 22 million to run a jail. So we spend all of our detention sales tax plus general fund on the jail.
part of the detention sales tax goes to support juvenile detention.
Part of our jail system.
In 2024, 21.3 million in the general fund is corrections.
Have you been to the jail?
Are we good on this?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break and then we will be back for the resolution review and
We're done.
bathroom break. It is 2:56, and we are picking up with resolution review.
Yes, so before you commissioners is a list of the resolutions and ordinances that will, just resolutions that will need to be approved on December 15th. We tried to organize them in topic area, which is based on state law. We have to approve the budget in parts, not in whole, so there are different sections. So the first one is public infrastructure plans. This has to do with the CIP. So number one resolution is for the 24-25 capital improvement program.
20, did you say 24, 25?
24-29 is a
Yep,
6-year.
got it,
If I said
okay.
25, I did not mean to.
Okay,
It is written through 29.
yeah, I see.
Can I ask a really off-topic question? Why is anything ever printed single-sided?
Because I pushed the wrong button and it
But no, you're not
it
the only
defaults-
one. I'm just being,
because it
the industrial land study, which is this thick, is single-sided print.
Because the printer defaults to single-sided.
We should definitely spread the word that that should not.
It's.
My
it's
printer-
Sitting on your.
My stuff defaults to
Mine
single.
defaults to double.
We need to change that.
They're much more.
So for anyone watching, if you come to present to the board, double-sided is fine.
Anyway, sorry.
So within the first 2 pages there are the CIP. The resolution hasn't necessarily changed from the prior years, just dates have been changed, the information in it. It's the same. I don't know if now's the time to go through every line of it, but I wanted it to be in front of you, so you're aware of what's gonna be presented to you on the 15th, in case you did wanna look it over and there are some concerns. The other resolution is for the transportation improvement program. That's also for the same time frame, so 2024 through 2029. The standard resolution just changes with dates.
And I did not include the 75-page attachment with that, so I was thinking about.
But if you did, it would have been double-sided.
And for your reference, Jennifer has been really diligent to work with Elizabeth, so if any of the resolutions in front of you have her signature on it, she's already reviewed it. So that's the way it would come before you. The other ones are still in review. So the transportation improvement one has already been reviewed by Elizabeth
Or their attorney.
or their attorney. And if there isn't anything pressing in those two, I'll move on to internal services. So internal services, these come before you every single year. This is for the cost allocation plan. And that would be the cost allocation plan that central services does and HR. And then also your internal service rates that is done by financial services. So all of those internal rates are also going to be approved.
On the last resolution, am I missing a page? There's no, the one for the 6-year TIP. Is it more than one page?
6-year TIP is 1 page. It looks like it.
Just says
Nope,
section 1, section 2.
there are 2 pages.
I don't have a second page on that one.
Yeah, that one doesn't end, Jennifer.
I have one that, oh.
Nope, because that's the cost of.
Let me check it. I might have, when I was trying to get rid of the because it's already combined into one PDF, and so when I was getting rid of the attachment, it might have gotten rid of the second page, but I
Okay.
will double check that.
Just to make sure, I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
Make sure you're not missing something.
So then I misspoke, yeah, because that one on the back there is actually for the indirect cost plan that's signed.
Do we have the,
So we have attachments, we did not provide them for you because it would have been,
75 pages.
yeah. But we can provide those either electronically, if you guys want to look at them ahead of time, some of the attachments to some of these
I'm sorry, what?
attachments. They're not presented here, but we can email them if you'd like to see the attachments. There's a lot of pages, especially for
Okay.
the CIP.
And I do have both pages, and it is signed for the TIP. It's just when I was putting this together last night.
If you've got it, I'm good. I just want to make sure it wasn't.
And that's gonna be the indirect cost plan. That's the presentations that you guys have had before. It's all built in the budget based off those presentations that you had. This is just signing off on that resolution now to make it for the 24 when we start in January. The next thing underneath, internal services is for the ER&R equipment rental rates, is that what it says there? And so this is gonna be for your essential services funds. It's gonna include the equipment list, all the items to be, bought within the year, and is it gonna be 2 years or 1 year? Just 2024, right? Equipment list?
2024 equipment list.
So Bruce reviewed with you the pool car rates, which will be on attachment C. What is, I see on this list A, B, and C, but in the now therefore it says A, B, C, D, and E. What are those attachments going to be?
D is the letter from Matt that the county roads engineer has approved the
That
list.
CRAB requires,
Mhm.
okay.
And we have the rate sheet. We have the equipment list for 2024. We have the attachment C is the equipment rates. Attachment D is the letter from Matt. Attachment E is the pool car rate, so we'll make sure all the attachments are included.
So C is equipment hourly rate, what equipment?
That is the boat, backhoe,
These are
bucket
the
trucks.
public works equipment. Make sure that that's very clear on the title
Okay,
of the attachment and in the AIS.
okay. Public works.
And I don't recall that the board has approved or not approved, but reviewed those rates.
I was not aware that they had changed from prior years.
The board has to review them before they can vote on them.
Okay, we'll make sure we get the attachment to them.
So how is that review? Is it just
Should have been reviewed at the time they reviewed all the other things.
during the presentations when we did the rates, or?
It's kind of late for a presentation, but
I mean, when was this review supposed to happen?
so Bruce had a review of the rates, the pool car rates, and I'd asked at that time, where are the public works rates?
Okay.
We need to have those rates as well. Because what the law requires is that they be reviewed annually and approved by the board.
Okay. So how
I'm
do we?
sorry, Commissioner Mintzer, you were about to ask.
Oh, I think you answered it, because I remember we did get we did
Pool
look
car.
at a set of rates, and you were talking about the changes and stuff, but
Pool car rates.
okay.
I don't recall. Bruce may have brought the other rates forward as well, and I just don't remember it.
Should we print these out now for their review, or how does that?
No,
No.
they've, I'm assuming they've seen all the rest.
I think we have, like,
Yeah. You saw the pool car rates.
yeah.
That requires your review. So
We did.
you need to align this and this. And make sure that the board has seen all the various rates.
Bruce is in class right now, so hopefully he can respond.
Okay, so that's all the attachments there. Now we'll have those listed.
So we're up to personnel actions.
Personnel actions. So I'm gonna let you go through your attachments then, Jennifer, when we start going through here, make sure we have all the exhibits. So the first one says for the wage step plan,
What?
exhibit, so number 5, setting salaries for non-union employees. Exhibit A says, why did we say exhibit and not attachment? This is different. Wage step plan for non-represented employees in the pay plan.
Yep.
B, salary ranges for MTP.
Yep.
And salary ranges for at-will. Is C.
Not there yet? Yes.
D, wage and step plan for non-representative defense attorneys and deputy prosecuting attorneys.
Yes.
that looks like what is shown in the resolution.
2, 3, what about this,
Official
Court
court
reporters.
reporters.
Where do you see court reporters? Is that in the
see it
resolution?
on the
Section
resolution?
five.
Okay, no, I don't have that and it's, wait. I do not have anything for court reporters.
So would that be like an exhibit E that we haven't received yet?
It says they get 3.5.
So if it's a set rate, perhaps it doesn't need an exhibit.
I'll talk to Tara about that.
Yep.
The next one is for position control, number 6. And this is what you didn't see it when we were speaking about the start dates for some of public health, but there is a position control that lists every position and its start date. If it's not gonna be the first of the year, it lists when it's going to be, it lists the position number, how many FTE, and its classification. So that'll be that exhibit.
And this is not a finalized amendment yet, so because based on decisions that you made today, Tara needs to make adjustments to the backup documents, so.
So that's just gonna be one attachment. All right, so then when we get to appropriations, number 7, this is your operating budget. This is your mean resolution here. So attachment A is going to be budget and FTEs by department. And that's the normal attachment that you guys see, even during, when we do amendment changes, when we do the midterm, this is your budget and FTE by department and what was approved in the operating budget. And then attachment B is your proviso that we just went through.
You said, you referred to this as number 7, and just cat question, mine don't have, like, it's got a resolution,
Do you guys
blank
have this?
resolution.
You guys have this page?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
different document.
Yeah, but it's hard to tell which of these sheets
Is number
goes
7.
with these.
When you say number 7, I guess that's what, I'm just asking, where is 7? I've got it in front of me, that resolution, but there's no number, so I'm wondering if you're looking at something else.
Yeah, that's a good point. So at the top of it, it should say a resolution relating to the adoption of the 24 and 25 biennium, Thurston County operating budget.
Yeah, that's the same one, but
The
I'm
one.
just
Okay.
trying to make sure I am looking at the right
Yeah, you
one.
got the right one.
You got the right one if it says that, yes.
But you said, so is there a number, a page number or something that I'm missing?
No,
Cause I'm a bugaboo about page numbers.
I hear you. So on this sheet, it says number 7, but however, on the resolution, it does not say number 7 on it.
Okay,
they don't have resolution numbers assigned yet.
yeah, okay, no, that's fine, I see where you're going, off the front sheet,
Yeah.
you're going off the cover sheet, and I'm going off the real
The
resolution,
real thing, and
I
they
see.
don't have numbers.
Okay, I got it, good, thank you.
Can I ask about the page 2? The road property tax levy?
It has to be, the
Updated.
amount needs
The
to be
yellow, if
changed.
it's yellow, that still means we still need to make changes to it.
Oh,
This is-
okay.
This one is completely in draft still.
Okay,
Yeah.
just, yeah, it didn't seem like what we decided, so I was
No,
just making sure.
no.
Because even the adopted date is off.
Up to date is right.
Adopted date.
Nothing else is.
Everything else is, yeah. So then the next one is capital. At the top of that page, it says a resolution relating to the adoption of 24-25 biennium. It says capital budget, including road fund and other county funds. And so that's also going to have the capital, it's gonna have the capital budget and the FTEs by department as the attachment. And then there'll be a project summary by department, fund, and project as attachments. And this will be your capital budget. Right, and then increases in taxes and fees.
Let me just ask one question
Yeah.
about the capital budget. Is there a dollar amount in there anywhere?
Not yet,
Yeah.
But there will be.
yes, there will.
And then, so when we get to increases in taxes and fees, the first one is for the property tax for the current expense budget, for current expense fund. So at the top, it says authorizing an increase in property tax revenue in both dollars and percentage for the current expense fund. So all the highlighted yellow sections will be updated with the correct numbers.
And is there a reason that these are split? One for the general fund and one for the other four?
I would refer to you. I think that's the way it is from last year, and that's the way the state law says that.
So they were split in the past because one commissioner was gonna vote no on one of them.
Okay. We don't have to put up with that this year.
We'll combine these into.
The guy isn't such a knucklehead.
So all of the property tax ones can be combined.
It was only on one thing.
It was all about one thing.
You'll never be able to forget it.
Okay, so we'll combine those. So then that jumps to adoption of the water and sewer utility rates and charges. And we had the public hearing on that last night and presented. That one has already been reviewed.
Yep.
As well as the next is the Lake Lawrence Management rate charges, and that has also been reviewed by legal. So those numbers in there are what you could approve.
And this is in relation to the public hearing that we had
Yes, Jeff.
yesterday.
This is their 3%, okay. And another 3%, is it due for both years?
Yep.
And the next is for the public safety sales tax, the law fund. This is creating that fund. Is that the correct fund number, Jennifer? 1240? And then the next one's for the justice fund. So it's the law fund and the justice fund to create those funds for the biennium. It's been reviewed already by legal, so that is the language.
Is this what did the resolution say proportionate public defense?
20%.
But what does that mean?
Changed by the-
Yeah, I pulled language from the resolution.
Are you sure? Proportionate.
Where are you reading from?
So I'm looking at the resolution that starts off a resolution related to the creation of a new fund, public safety sales tax, justice fund 1240.
Yeah.
First page.
Wait. Yours says 1240?
There's two. Go to the next one.
There's two, one is for law and one is for justice.
Okay, just a minute.
And I'm looking at the justice one,
Section 4, though.
under item number 4.
1240, got it, okay.
Okay, under number 4, nearly the bottom of the page, it says, "The funds from this account may be expended for additional prosecution and proportionate public defense services." What does proportionate mean?
I think I know what it means. I don't remember it being in there, but
I don't remember
the
it
idea would be, let's say the Supreme Court adopts those new case laid standards and the board says, let's use this money to fund all the new public defenders we need, and the
That's right.
prosecutor gets nothing. And the prosecutor would not like that. So it's basically, it's supposed to be the proportionate response to the additional law enforcement capacity. And so we can't just fund one side of not the other in roughly proportionate shares.
Right,
says
and if I recall, that was something that Ramiro worked on,
It was a
negotiated.
negotiated compromise.
I'm looking at the resolution. It says in that line, it says, whereas additional funding is necessary to provide additional prosecution and responsive public defense services to address increasing caseloads. So I don't see proportionate, I see.
So
responsive.
I can go back to Elizabeth on that one, because when I had written it, I did not include as stated in resolution 16289. I think what I pulled it from was the ballot measure,
You took it from where?
the ballot measure.
Okay, well, I would think the ballot measure is the one that we ought to be
The
using.
ballot measure is
Well, and the
indeed
ballot-
the governing.
Well, the ballot measure is referenced in the resolution.
Right,
So the
Right.
resolution has the Prop 1 ballot
it
measure,
does,
which does
yeah.
say proportionate public defense services, so that's why there's a reference to
say
the
that there.
resolution. So
okay.
we're good.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if by adding 2 public defense FTEs in 24, we're not, and nothing for the prosecutor until later.
And then the prosecutor, if we were to add all those, would have 8 positions, and then public defense would have 2 in there.
There was more prosecutor positions
Yeah.
than defense.
Well, are we proportionate then?
What is
I
the meaning
mean,
of is?
We're, jeez.
Commissioner Klaus? Oh, no, I didn't have a question.
Oh,
Sorry. That was confusing, the way I moved my hand.
Okay, just,
All right.
I think that's a discussion for another day.
Okay, and so then the last is creating the fund for the consolidation of the water and sewer utilities. So those funds, looks like that's been reviewed by legal as well.
There's
Is there one more?
There's one more.
Oh, one more.
Is that not on the list?
Yes, creation of Offutt
There is
Lake-
one more on the list.
Creation of Offutt Lake Management District Fund.
I think this needs to be changed though,
Definitely.
because it has the
Oh,
public
it's the old
works.
format, yeah, no.
Well, and it
it's
has
got
public works as the department, and that's the part that I would wanna change since it's transferring over to public health.
Yeah.
So it needs to be reviewed again.
Okay,
Okay, that's all the resolutions.
Do you
So-
wanna talk about amendment 4?
on Friday the 15th, the way this will work is, we'll have, this will look a lot more like your regular Tuesday agenda. It'll all be in the AIS system. Each one will have a motion. So we'll ask you to move and then vote on each resolution before you. And we'll just,
Will they have a resolution number on them by then?
will they? Does Jamie assigns the resolution numbers after you vote?
Oh, I mean, it just makes it so much easier. They've got a number
separate
on,
though,
it. We're
right?
voting on resolution
They'd be in separate like thingies.
2, 3, 4.
Actions.
Separate actions. I
Each
think
one
it
will
might
have
group-
an AIS. It'll be like your Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, no, but I've always questioned why the resolution number isn't applied, 10 minutes before we vote on it, or 1 hour, I don't know.
Because
'cause it-
sometimes you change things, sometimes you add something,
Sometimes
sometimes
you-
you pull things.
You don't vote for it.
Yeah. It's,
Somebody does that?
I know, shocking. It was only one thing, right?
Outside of the biennium, there also will be an AIS for the Amendment 4 to be adopted also on the 15th. So you'll see that resolution.
That's right.
Didn't we start adding resolution numbers?
When do we?
I thought we started doing that. I don't know, maybe this was.
We
I'm
can
just-
check with Jamie if we can get resolution numbers ahead, but at this point, what,
At this
We can
point, my.
Because then if we don't vote no on it, then everyone's like, where's that resolution? You hit it.
I remember, but then it was, I thought we did like this shift, I don't, okay, I thought we did a shift, but it's,
I thought we
funny,
did
but it's
too,
true.
but,
You know,
yeah,
it'd be
I know
nice
it
if
is.
there was a ledger there and the clerk of the board, we vote, and they say signed number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next, what, I don't know.
She assigns them in consecutive order, but I do believe she assigns them after the fact.
Okay.
And isn't there an
I'm
order
trying to
that
get
we
in the
have, like,
middle
this
of
is
new
a conversation,
detail
but
at the
there's
last
an order
minute.
that they have to be adopted in?
You absolutely must adopt them in a very specific order. For example, you must move the CIP and the TIP before you move the budget.
What about the revenue
And
source?
then the budget before the revenues.
Revenue sources come after they are supporting the budget you just adopted.
And Emily, there'd be a test on all this here.
You know how we had that,
And I'll flunk.
Mr. Pettit, since we've been discussing him today, he has brought up in the past, and he brought up yet again this year, his belief that you may not reduce the budget.
Yes, but that was litigated and Mr. Pettit did not prevail in
Unsuccessful.
court.
Okay, I just wanted to remind myself of that because I don't understand why he thinks that.
I don't understand why he continues to say many things that he did not prevail on in court.
That's the last item on the agenda.
Anything else, Nicole?
That's it. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, so I want to thank the budget team as well as commissioners for the conversation today. It is 3:23. We are adjourned.